you touched on education a little bit, and that's a bit of a soft spot for me because I've been in the education sector for over 10 years now, and I come from the tree of Jeffrey Canada, a great man that started the Harlem Children's Zone in Harlem, and his philosophy was that education is the key out of generational poverty, and so I totally fall under that belief. But during this current COVID pandemic and us being at home and having our children at home, and all of this distance learning that's happening and the pressures that it's putting on parents, one of the things that I tell a lot of my parents is that don't lose out on this opportunity to be able to teach certain very important life lessons, things like empathy that you just spoke about, right? What are your thoughts around making sure that us as a community are taking this time together to really stamp these type of things on our future generations that are coming behind us, like letting them know, like, listen, you see this is what we're going through, but we're going to make it out of this, and we're going to come out of this greater people. What's your thoughts on that thought process?
Well, I absolutely agree with you. One of the things that needs to be honed in on is the skills that it will take for these children to be sustainable adults. And education in the traditional sense where, like you said, I know that you have infused your career with all of those things that young people are going to need. The entire system of education, though, needs to be revamped to think that way. And so if we've not learned anything in this time, it's funny that you asked that question too, because just a couple of days ago, I saw someone share with me a meme that said something like, during COVID, teach the kids, don't teach them the curriculum, teach them what they're going to need to survive. And I'm like, hello, we've been saying this. Mm-hmm. We have been saying this. And so, we have to teach our children about economic independence. We have to teach our children about empathy, like you said earlier. And yes, using this time to also just love them, because these young people are going through trauma for various reasons, a complete shift in their environment that have caused, and a lot of our kids, unfortunately, are in home situations where school was an escape for them,
right,
to be honest. So being able to, stay in community with folks as they are teaching their children, and educating them at home is another way in which we're going to have to continue to operate like a community. And you're absolutely right. The things that are important, are empathy, economics, healing, trauma-informed practices, healing-centered practices that grow free critical thinkers. Mm-hmm. If she can name every planet in the solar system, that's great. But if she knows how to balance a checkbook and, have her household run on, a particular budget and be able to feed her family and be able to earn for her family, and be able to care for other people, those things are a lot more important to me in our communities.
Yeah. Michelle, you mentioned that you was at a police brutality rally earlier this week, and everybody has seen the videos of the brutality that's happening, the unequal policing when it comes to social distancing and the laws with masks, how one community is being treated one way and how another community is being treated another way. My instincts, the pulse that I try to have on the community, it's like we've always known that police have treated our communities a little different, but during this pandemic to see that happening, I feel like it's even hurting us even more. I feel like it's like throwing salt on a wound right now. Like knowing that our communities are the ones being ravaged by this COVID because of the inequities that our communities have, and then on top of that, you're going to treat us in this manner as well too. It really, really feels like this is cutting really deep this time, and I'm a little concerned of how our communities might react if this doesn't get if there's not an adjustment to this by our city officials and the individuals that are in charge of our policing. What do you think?
Not only will the response at some point be equal treatment back to those who are brutalizing us in the street, but we can look through many points of history and time where uprising had to happen in order for change to occur. And I believe we are all very clear on there not being any moment in time where freedoms were being fought for and obtained where bloodshed was not a part of that equation. And so while we can push for legislative changes, while we are taking to the street to disrupt their normalcy and making things uncomfortable for them, eventually what will happen if NYPD and the other police departments across the country, if they do not stop, there will be an uprising so deep that it could feel like a World War III. And I say that not in jest. I say that with historical reference points, because even after an action happens and you have NYPD body slamming a black woman to the ground to arrest her for not social distancing, that is a direct slap in the face to our community. We do not have high up enough elected officials, mayor, governor, that are saying that this is not okay for NYPD to do. So if this is happening all across the country, the only thing that comes to mind is that these people are being given the green light to finish the job that is not being done quick enough, either by coronavirus, COVID-19, homelessness, food desert, lack of education, so on and so forth. It's all part of, a greater plan to depopulate us, from our environment that we built, quite literally. So what do I think about it? I think shame on them, for sure. And number two, we also have a right to rise up and stand and protect ourselves. And that is by any means necessary. What's happening is absolutely not okay. And I'm not politically correct in the sense that, my words can be filtered, altered, bought, or sold. What they're doing is just clearly fucked up to the people. And it's probably going to take that level of intensity, unfortunately, in order to correct the situation. The person that comes to mind the most is Nat Turner. And it's sad to think that after all of these years, the uprising and the slave revolutions that took place, that here we are again in a situation where we quite possibly would have to take the head off of another human being because we're being beaten and killed in the street.
Yeah.
It makes some sense.
You spoke a little bit about politically correct, and so, shifting a little bit into the political world, next month we have, our elections, right, here in the state of New York. You yourself are running for New York State Assembly. And first, I want to thank you and commend you for taking that challenge on. Running for politics is a difficult thing. It's challenging. It takes a toll on your family, and sometimes it doesn't feel like you really can have the impact that you want to have because you run up against so many obstacles and stuff. But I want to thank you for taking that on, and I want to wish you luck on June 23rd in your election. Can you talk about how important, though, it is for folks in our community to understand how powerful our voting tool is, and understanding that we need to flex that voting muscle as much as we can, because that is a powerful way for us to begin to shift the power here in our communities as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I like to be really clear about with regards to this race for the assembly seat here in the 78th district is that I'm running for my community. Some people say that they're running for a political seat, and that actually is not the case. If we are community led and the embodiment of our community is the precipice by which we make our decisions, taking on a feat such as this, which you mentioned earlier, is exacerbating. It is difficult. It is designed to implicitly keep people without resources and money and pre-established power out. And I'm running as a write-in candidate in this moment because I was 28 signatures short on my ballots, because I suspended petitioning because people were dying in the street.
Right.
And so while I understand that I'm going up, in running for my community, I'm going up against a person who has been in the seat for 30 years, a person who quite literally has established the Bronx machine. There's no fear or intimidation factor in this moment.
Mm-mm.
We are continuing to die literally in the street, as like what happened this morning on my way to the market, and not being able to even get the image of this woman's face out of my head all day today. So when we talk about this race for the assembly, we also need to keep in mind that it is just time for a change. I live in a district where we have 133,000 people. 59% live under the poverty line. Out of those 133,000 people, 50% are 30 years old and younger. And the people who are targeted the most in these instances of police brutality are under the age of 30 and happen to look like you and I. So I don't have the right to do nothing. I don't have the luxury of waiting for someone else to change it. And whether we give the opponent a black eye or win, the win here in this moment is letting every other little black girl who cannot be bossed around understand the power in her presence can shift the impact for a whole community. And hopefully it'll inspire some of the 15,000 kids that we have impacted with our organization, Miss Abby's Kids, over the last several years. Maybe it'll give a little of hope to the young men whose lives we've been able to touch over the last 15 years, as it pertains to criminal justice, as it pertains to housing rights, as it pertains to youth development and leadership, and what building leadership truly looks like, which is investing in those around you to the extent that if you die tomorrow, the fight can go on, and that your team is so strong nobody can identify who the leader is. And if we can move forward with that set of principles, then Mr. Leon, I'm trying to tell you that those kind of things give me hope. Those kind of things give me hope. So, but it's going to take the whole entire community to get this done. It's going to take the entire community's support. It's going to take the support of folks who want to see our seniors protected. It's going to take the support of folks who want to see our youth educated the right way. It's going to take the support of folks who want to see an end to the prison industrial complex. It's going to take the support of everyone who believes living in a food desert only puts our bodies at a vulnerable position so that we cannot fight off disease. It took 20 years for powers that be to weaken our bodies with the lack of access to proper food and nutrition and nourishment and medical practices. And now we cannot fight off a disease that is ravishing us. We don't have to be victims anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we all stood up.
Ms. Charles, you spoke about going up against an enemy that's just at a point where it almost seems unsurmountable, right? And when you decide to take on being a trying to be a political candidate, trying to be a community activist, all these things, those forces will test who you are as a person. It will test your morals. It will test your the fabric of the person that you are. You know, recently in order to continue to get more understanding who I am as a person, you know, if I can be more prepared and strong willed to go up against those forces. One of the things that I did was I took an ancestry test. I wanted to see, you know, where my roots are, what's my background. And so when I go into these battles, I know that I'm going in armed with a history of some of the most beautiful and strong people that have ever walked this earth, right? And so you know, my results were a little surprising for me. It said to me that, you know, the highest percentage that I had in my DNA was from Nigeria. You know, and while of course, you know, everyone knows that, you know, people that look like you and I, we no matter what our path is, we all rotate back to Africa. It was a different experience actually seeing, yeah, this is where you from. You from Nigeria. And so it gave me a new sense of empowerment now to continue this, Sister Charles. Like now, like before, I used to say, yeah, I consider myself Afro Latino, but you know, I used to say that because you know I am, you know, the culture wise, I knew what I was, and but the African Latino, the African part, I didn't really know where to kind of stamp it with, but now knowing this, I kind of feel empowered now. I feel like now I know where I'm coming from. I know who I am, and I know who I'm fighting for even more. And so, is that something that us as a community we need to start to get a better understanding of who we are, so that we can bond more as a community and be able to understand, you know, that we really are one family, and we need to be able to protect each other and support each other.
You're just about to bring tears to my eyes, and I promise you I don't have any more tears left in these ducts after earlier today. But absolutely on point. When you have knowledge of self, historically and ancestrally, it increases your ability to sustain the fight. Absolutely. And this is why it is so important that we educate our children. The reason I took my daughter, well, the straw that broke the camel's back, is because one day she comes home, and every day I always ask, what did you learn in school? I look through her stuff. We go over everything that she learned, and I'm always scanning for what's not been taught correctly. And this one particular day, she comes home and says that she learned about Christopher Columbus. So I took a deep breath, got me some coffee, and sat back because I already knew where this was going. So she reports to me when I say, oh, great. Well, who was Christopher Columbus and what did he do? Christopher Columbus was a great guy that discovered our country, and he, you know, wanted to make sure that everyone here had what they needed. And so as I took 2 big gulps of my piping hot coffee, I then asked her, well, was there anyone here when he got here? And if so, what happened to them? Oh, you're talking about the Indians, right? Oh, yes, Miracle. Yes, I am. Well, there wasn't enough space here for them. So he got them some more land, and he moved them to land where they'd have more space. I said, really? I gave her her phone, and I said, now what I want you to do is I want you to research Christopher Columbus, and I want you to tell me what you come up with. So less than 10 minutes later, she comes storming into the living room, and she is boiling. Her eyes are swollen. She's crying, and she's angry. And I'm like, what's wrong? They lied to me. Who lied to you? And now she's telling me how Christopher Columbus was a rapist and how he stole the land and how he,
Hmm.
the slave trade and all of these things. And I bring that example up because of the question that you asked about knowing who you are. The only way in which we can be the most impactful parts of ourselves is by knowing where we come from and who we are. And could you imagine what that feeling, that rush that you felt, could feel like to nations of our children washed?
Hmm.
You asked a question earlier about the power of the vote. What I'll say to that is that if our vote was not powerful, they would not try to keep us from doing it.
Right.
So if we don't understand the rules in which by they play the game, then we're always going to be in the audience, and we'll never be the captains of the teams.
Hmm.
Another one quick thing to remember is that if there's no one on the ballot that you like, you can cast a blank ballot and it still counts. Because what people don't realize is that the local races, council, senate, assembly, um, are all, you get money to community by how many people in the community exercise their right to vote, not about who they voted for, but the fact that they voted. So if you
Hmm.
got a community of 1,000 people and you only got 12 people that are voting, your community is not getting money, your community is not
Right.
getting resources, your community is not even getting looked at. You can be calling Department of Transportation because you have a pothole 10 feet long by 20 feet wide, and the first thing they want to ask you is, oh sure, can I have your name and address? That's not because they want to send you a Christmas card. It's because they're looking to see if you're a voter and if your people in your community vote. And that tells them how quickly they're going to come and
Hmm.
fix that hole. We had a sinkhole for I don't know how long, and it took having to organize people to get the sinkhole together. Where if we had had at least 70 to 80% votership in our community, one phone call would have done the trick, like it does on 79th Street and Fifth Avenue, where
Hmm.
people exercise their right to vote. So I guess in summation to all of those things, every
Hmm.
piece of power that we have is in our collective voice, our ability to organize, and our ability to put people in and out of office that are going to protect our interests.
Hmm. 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 I appreciate that. I appreciate you, hammering those points home for me. I want to now just, kind of conclude by thank you for giving me the precious gift of time and coming on, and sharing, your insight. It was just exactly what we needed and exactly what we were looking for. I didn't get a chance to thank you, but thank you for coming out to my event in February. It
Absolutely.
was really nice to see you there. It was a great kickoff event, and I'll make sure to send you all our information. And we're just going to kind of continue this march together. Election or not, it really doesn't. At the end,
Word.
that doesn't stop the movement that needs to happen. But we'll continue to work together to do everything that needs to be done. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending a little bit of time of your Mother's Day with us. And I hope you come back on at some time and we can continue this conversation.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me and sharing your time with me as well. And just in closing, for those who are interested, tomorrow at Foley Square, which is downtown Manhattan, at 5:30, will be another action of disruption in protest to police brutality
Right.
and taking out on our bodies
Hmm.
what they think is okay. For those people who would like to support me with regards to this race for the assembly in the 78th district, folks can absolutely go to votecharlesforchange.com, and that's
Hmm.
VOTECHARLESFORCHANGE.com, votecharlesforchange.com, to be updated about what we have going on, the platform points that we are working towards, which are the same community points that we have been working on. But they can absolutely feel free to connect with me there
Hmm.
as well. And beyond any race, as always, the community work absolutely must continue.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Sister Charles. Be safe. Love and peace to your family and everyone. And I'll see you
Thank
soon.
you.
Okay.
All right. Peace, beloved.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.